Recording in progress.
Good morning, or it's afternoon, honorable members. Good afternoon to a team led by the DDG Makubela. I was informed that you'll be leading the team. And good evening, if I'm not mistaken, to our Canadian counterparts. Can I check before we start whether we meet quorum? I only saw Honorable Hassan, Honorable Zondi, Honorable Mufukeng. Who else is on the platform? Can you indicate?
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm not sure whether the members are using their gadgets, but they are not clearly identified.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, can they indicate those that are in the platform?
In terms of the 1441A. Likewise, on Wednesday, 29 October.
So it's only the four of us. Can we give it 5 minutes while Ms. Boss, you locate them to join the meeting?
Chair, Honorable Zungula just joined us now, so we can proceed as we won't be taking any decision. We are good to go.
Okay, thank you very much. As I have said, good afternoon, those that it's afternoon, and good evening to those that it's in the evening. Honorable members, this is the continuation of a meeting that was briefing us about the new cadastral system. If you recall, we had a problem in the demonstration of how the cadastral system will work. But also we had concerns that the live stream was not activatable, and therefore the stakeholders out there, South Africans out there who want to follow how the cadastral system is going to work, will not have any reference to the demonstration. And that's why we're having it virtual, so that it's recorded and anyone who wants to watch it can watch it on YouTube, but also on the parliamentary channel. So that is basically what we agreed on that meeting, and this is the continuation of that meeting. You are all welcome in your different corners. Can we take apologies, Ms. Boss?
Good afternoon, honorable members and our guests. Chair, Honorable Lorima has indicated that he won't be able to join us. He's attending a house sitting. That's the only apology I receive on my side. Thank you.
Thank you. DDG Makubela, any apology from your side?
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. From our side, Chairperson, the Honorable Minister is on official travel, as well as the Honorable Deputy Minister. The DG, I believe that has spoken to the chair, is also unable to attend due to a scheduled meeting of DGs. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay, thank you very much, DDG Makubela. Are we good to proceed please indicate that before I give to you and your team.
Apologies, Chair. Can I please get an indication who should I give the hosting rights so that they can be able to share the presentation?
DDG Makubela?
No, thank you very much. Chair, I wanted to first, with your permission, just introduce the team that is here with us. I do believe that Judith will be the one that will be driving, but I wanted to introduce the head of PMG consortium, Mr. Tanner, and probably he would confirm whether Judith is the one that is leading, Chair, with your permission.
Yeah, you can go ahead. And if possible, when you introduce someone, they must just show their face. They are welcome to switch it off as and when we continue. We can hear it's you, but we have never met Mr. Tanner. It will be very important for the public to know and ourselves to know who is Mr. Tanner.
Okay.
But if he's in an uncomfortable area, it's okay, but we would have loved that meetings are conducted when people are in a comfortable place. Can you go ahead, Mr. Makubal?
No, thank you very much, Chair. Once again, good afternoon to yourself, Chair, honorable members, and the guests and
Mr.
colleagues.
Makubala, sorry for that. There is an insistence that because we are live and it will be played later on South African TV, we show our faces when we speak.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, firstly, we want to appreciate the opportunity to come back to the committee for this session where we demonstrate the features of the cadastral system. We have divided the demonstration, Chair, into two parts. The first part will be led by Jim Tanner and his team from PMG. PMG is a consortium. He will introduce the consortium. And the second demonstration, Chair, will be from the regional manager in the Western Cape, just taking us through the number of companies that have registered and just giving an update on that. But the bulk of the demonstration will be that led by Jim Tanner and his team, Chair, with your permission. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great opportunity, a great honor to be here this afternoon and introduce our team. As DDG has explained, the PMG is a consortium, Pacific Geotech South Africa, MITS Consulting, located in South Africa, and Gemini GIS Environmental Services, also in South Africa. So with us today, we have a good team here this afternoon. Rajesh Benny is our local project manager on the ground.
Mr. Rajesh, can you greet us?
Rajesh, if you have a video. He might have just dropped off for a moment.
Okay, proceed.
And I believe with Gemini GIS and Environmental Services, we have Andiswa Salinga and Mandisa Tonsi.
I proceed. They are not prepared
That's
to.
fine. Yeah, that's fine. And with our PM or with the Pacific Geotech SA, we have Barry McPeak, our senior business analyst, and Judith Uriel, who is our vice president of operations and our a senior business analyst with us.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, colleagues.
Thanks, Judith. So as I hand it off to Judith with just a couple of comments, which I've made before, but the South Africa mining licensing system provides or allows South Africa the opportunity to reach a global market of potential investors in the mining industry. And by improving the process and providing information online, we support industry's need for access to information, the need for accurate land statusing, timely decisions, and the issuance of secure rights. On the government side, it supports the complete mining life cycle, offering security, transparency, and traceability requirements as objectives. The proven result of deployment to an online governance model results in an increase in capacity, improved data quality, and an increase in investor confidence and secure managed environment. So I think with that, I'll hand it over to Judith if you're ready, Judith, and I'll let you proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, just I'm going to keep my camera off for the rest of the demonstration. Just because it's a little bit weird doing the demo and having to look at yourself. So I've turned off my camera and I will share my screen shortly. Oh, I'm getting an error message here. I'm trying to share my screen and it says the host disabled attendees from sharing their screen.
Apologies, I gave the hosting rights to Judith Ariel, J10, and Peter Swartz. It shows as you've got the right. You can share the screen.
Yeah, I can't, unfortunately. It's giving me an error message here. One second. Let's see what. Rajesh, who else is on the list, please? Can the person try to see if they can share their screen? I just want to make sure it's not just me.
Yes, I gave it to Judith Ariel, J10, and then I gave to Peter Swart. Is there anyone else that I can try and give them?
Regulations to Parliament. So one of the regulations are that the Parliament has considered the regulations. Then we are able to get.
Is there anyone who is part of the team who continue?
No, it would just be me doing the demo, but I just need them to test it. Or if you could reset the our permissions to allow all, because at the end of the day, it would just be me sharing my screen. If someone can tweak the permission, I'm not sure because I'm joining the Zoom call from a browser. Not quite sure why my account is not showing.
Okay, I'll try to remove all the co-hosts and restart it again. Just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
I note in my when I check, it says the host only is the only person that can share.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the email because we don't use Zoom, so we're all joining from the browser. So she probably has to remove all the permissions.
But they can be backdated without, but the amount will tell us that it's the backdated. Make the change.
Try now, Judith.
Thank you.
Sorry, Judith, what I will do, I'll try to make you a host and see if it's not gonna go through.
Okay.
Instead of a co-host.
Just 1 second. I think he did something because I can see it now. Let me try sharing again.
What
I changed it.
the chart in the way. I
Are you saying something? I'm sharing.
Yes.
Google
Yeah,
page.
we
Yes.
can see the Google page now.
Awesome. Okay. That's good. All right. So I'll just jump right into it. Okay. So we are very excited to be presenting this new mining system to you. This system is designed not only to modernize the way the ministry works, but also fundamentally to transform the administration and management of mineral rights and permits in South Africa. So our aim this afternoon is very clear and focused on three key objectives. So the first one, we intend to show you visually and in real time some of the capabilities of this new system. And we're just going to be focusing on at least 4 components of the system. The second thing we want to do here is demonstrate how the system will reshape and strengthen the governance and transparency and efficiency of South Africa's mineral rights and permit processing. And then the last thing we will do on this call is to help provide clarity to some of the questions that you may have. But this demonstration is going to be a little bit structured so that we can respect our time together, because there is a lot to show. For the demonstration, I'm going to lead with just driving and demonstrating the system. I will not be taking questions in between, but I would say keep your thoughts, keep your questions. After the demo, we're going to have some time to explore your questions. And if it requires me to come back into the system, I will do that, just to make sure that the flow is seamless and we're not losing a lot of time. My preference would be just to stick to the demo, and we would take questions at the end. And Jim, if you could help me monitor the time. I think there's other things we have in the agenda as well, just to be respectful and mindful of other people's time. So we're going to try to clock this demonstration we've already lost about 20 minutes. So I would try to clock it at 50 minutes. So please let me know when I'm at the 35 minutes mark so I can speed up if I'm still behind.
Thanks, Judith.
Okay. So the agenda for this demonstration is narrowed down to 4 major components I'm going to be showing you. I'm going to be talking about the client management component, which is which covers the registration of your clients and how you can manage them and their consultants in the system. Then I'm going to move into lodging an application for rights and permits. Then our third item on the agenda is to show you how the ministry is going to be able to manage those lodged applications. So reviewing the applications and making the decision. Now, something I would highlight here, when I get to number 3, it will take extra 2 to 3 hours to show you the end to end, but I'm going to try to keep it at a high level and show you some of the concepts that we have there and then move on to the next thing. And then the final item is just to show you some of the research and reporting capabilities that will also be made available. All right. So on the screen right now, you can see I'm showing something which is pretty much the splash page for the mining system. So the mining system, as you all know, we rolled out a few months ago, we rolled out the phase 1, part of the phase 1 in Western Cape, which included the enrollment of your legacy clients in SAMRAD. So this is exactly the system that is on right now. That enrollment of clients has been ongoing, and we can see, we're looking into the reporting, and we can see that clients are being enrolled in Western Cape. And I think sometime towards the end of this demo, there's also going to be another round of presentation from Mr. Swart in Western Cape, who's going to touch on the enrollment of clients in the system. So I'm just mentioning this just to highlight that this would not be the first time the system is being exposed to the ministry. Ministry already have a portion of this running in production. But for today's demonstration, I'm going to focus on how you can register a new client into the mining system. So there are 2 types of user portals that we established for this project. And when I say user portals, another way to relate to this is think about it like websites. So you have external websites, and what I mean by external, which is exactly what I'm showing you right now, this is where your members of the public can come in to do some search depending on what you allow them to see. This is the portal that you would also have your clients, example, the mining companies, the prospectors. This is exactly where they're going to be coming in to perform actions, register themselves and perform actions in the system. Now, once you come in here, you're going to click on the login step. The first thing you would get here, which is similar to most global systems that you would see all around the world, would be to gain access into this system. And the way that we have implemented the ability to gain access is through, and I'll try not to dive too deep into technical details, but it's important to emphasize that this system uses Microsoft Entra authentication. So that's what you're looking at. So we're integrating to this something called Microsoft Entra to then authenticate and register the user. This is very important because this authentication layer ensures that every user sign-in is protected by the same advanced and trusted security that is held as a world standard. So when you're looking at Microsoft, you know, so many global institutions use the Microsoft authentication. So once you come in here, first requirement is you have to log in. Again, it's a digital system, and digital system go hand in hand with emails. So you're going to go in and enter your email. If you're already a registered client, in the case of what just happened 1 or 2 months ago in Western Cape, you've got clients who are already enrolled. When they come in here, they will just enter their email and then navigate to enter their password. But if I'm coming in as a new client interested in doing business, maybe I want to lodge an application for prospecting rights, and this is my first time in the system, then I would have to create my account. So as part of creating my account, I would have to enter my email. And I'll just leave. And then enter this code. And again, this is again another layer of that authentication. As you can see here, just by entering an email doesn't mean that the email is valid. So again, behind the scene with Microsoft, you have to actually have a legitimate email to be able to do your registration here. So what Microsoft will do is directly send you a code to that email address that you have provided. So in scenarios where that email address is a fake email, then you would not be able to access this email that has been sent to you. So I've gotten my code here sent by Microsoft, and it's sent to my email. And just for visual purposes, this is exactly what that client is going to receive. So they're going to get something from Microsoft. It gives you a passcode, and you can take that passcode, punch it in here. And if you don't have access to that email, you're not going to be able to get this passcode to continue. So once I have that password, next step is I'm going to put in the actual password that I want to set up on my account. So the next time I come back in, I will have to log into the system with this password. So I'm all set up. I'm going to accept Microsoft's permissions, and then the system should be able to bring me into the mining licenses system, as you've seen right here. So what's happening here is now we've now integrated back into this mining licensing system to then allow the clients to provide their client details. So another way to visualize this registration form would be pretty much what your banks will call the KYC form, know your customer kind of form. So while you're on the screen, a couple of things I wanted to touch in here. At this point, this client is not a registered client. So the permissions that they would have and the actions that they can perform in the system is pretty limited. So when you look at the left-hand side here, there is nothing here that they can do. The only thing they're allowed to do at this point is just to complete this registration. Sometime in the future, when they are done with this registration and log back in, then the system will then expose other permissions and activities that they can perform in the system. And again, this is another layer of security, making sure that the right people have access into the system. Something you're going to notice at the top here, consistently as I drive you through this demo, you're going to see at the top here that we have something we call the progress bar, which tells you clearly how many steps you need to complete, where you are in that step, and how many steps are left to be completed. Then again, for creating, for simplicity and creating systems that are very user-friendly, we try to keep the structure of the screen very clean and simple and easy to read. So on here, any field you see with the dots in red highlights instantly to that user that these are mandatory fields and they must complete these fields before they can navigate to the next step. So I'm just gonna go quickly. Again, when you do demonstrations, to go quickly, sometimes we'll have to speed things up, enter dummy data so that we can move quickly and not spend too much time. So in terms of registration, with what has been configured in this system, you have different types of clients. And when I speak to clients, I'm referring to, you've got companies who can register, you have individuals who can register, organ of state, SANRAL, et cetera, et cetera. So the system provides you a list of possible clients. It's up to the user to define exactly who they are and what their client details are. So in this scenario, I'm going to select that I'm a company, and something you're going to notice here, depending on the type of client you select, the system would automatically produce the necessary fields. So now I've selected company, I can see company name, company registration number, etc. If I went back and select individuals, then the system would automatically produce fields that are related to my selection. So this is how we make sure that we're capturing the accurate details while this client is doing their registration. So my scenario here, I'm going to register a company, and I could call my company Bay Mining Corporation, for example. And again, please, I'm going to highlight again, the goal here is not to fill in data exactly how you would do them in South Africa. So you're going to see me a lot of times putting in dummy data just to speed up the process. Now, company registration number, I'm just going to assume that this is my company registration number. So obviously, I'm going to have a certificate issued to me, and then from that document, I would produce my company registration number. Something that is yet to come in the future is the ability to validate this company. So once a client put in their company, we need to integrate to CIPC to validate, check and confirm the validity of this company to proceed. So I understand that the integration contract is already done with CIPC. So we're also going to be moving into a phase where that implementation will be happening. Then I'm going to select my correspondence type. And again, something you would notice, based on that email I signed in with, the system would then automatically produce that email. And it's so important to understand that everything in a digital system is always tied back to an email for signing, for receiving notifications, and then performing some actions in the system. So now I'm going to move into the step where you're now defining this person's address. So in my case, I could say this is my civic address. Maybe this is where my company is, and I will enter my address. And then the city, I could say PAL, hopefully I'm defining this correctly. And then just because we rolled out to Western Cape first, and the plan is to continue with Western Cape, we just automatically populate Western Cape. But as we open it up to more regions, you can have your selection here and enter in select your desired province. And then I'm going to just put in my postal code. And again, if you have additional address, maybe it's your mailing address, you have the ability to put it in. I'm just going to leave this one out and then capture my phone contacts. So I could say this is my business phone number. Again, just punching in dummy data here. This is not real data for phone numbers, but this is just to help drive the concept of what we're doing here. And this is my primary phone number. Then you have the ability to add more. Maybe I have a cellular number. I can also add the cellular number. Then you have the contact person. And for the contact person, again, this would be for this client. If something were to happen, who do you have as your contact? And your contact here, again, could be somebody registered in the system, or could be, a husband putting their wife, or a wife putting their husband, or a company putting their HR. So for the contact person, what we're doing here is just identifying for the registration of this client who is their additional contact person. And again, contact person could be one, it could be multiple, and is also optional. Okay. Just so now I'm done. I'm going to click next to proceed. Now notice at the top here, there is something in red here. The system has now thrown an error message, and what the system is saying is there is a document that is mandatory for this registration and you have not uploaded that document. And again, this is another intuitive way that we put some validations up front to make sure that the client is populating and adding and updating, uploading all the necessary information before they can submit this into the system, because the goal here is also to manage data quality. So in this case, now the message is showing here. I can go here and I can see that I need to attach a document here. So I'm going to browse to get into my folder where I've got my document. So let's assume this is a document. This is just a sample for the demo, and I'll attach my document. And this is the copy of my certificate of incorporation. And again, this is how another way the system provides that ease of use. It tells you exactly what is needed. From the error message, you can intuitively decipher what you need to do and execute the action. So I'm going to click next here to proceed. Get to my summary page, which is always a read-only page that allows you to review everything that you've added to that previous page. And you can look at the documents that you've attached. If I attach something and I'm now confused, I can download that document and take a view of that document and then confirm. If everything looks good, I'm going to finalize this registration. And as you can see here at the progress bar here, the system shows that I'm now at the final step, which is the confirmation. And there is also an intuitive message here telling this client that their registration is successfully done. Something unique you're going to see in this new system is the consistency of linking a unique client number to any registered client. Why is this important? This is important, and these are some of the gaps in the existing system. We've been handling data migration, even with enrollment we did a few months ago, where you have one client who has multiple client names in the system. So you have Mr. John Doe or Bay Mining Corporation, and Bay Mining Corporation is repeated 7 times. And it's always hard to figure out which one is the actual client that we're dealing with. So this is so important because this is how you're going to nationally line up information about this client. So if I register Bay Mining Corporation in Western Cape, people in Eastern Cape should be able to look me up and see this company is doing business already in the country, and this is the status of this company. They're in compliance, they're notorious for not being compliant, etc., etc. So once you register a client, we assign a unique client number and link that client name. And when I say client name, if it's a company, it will be the company name. If it's an individual, it will be the person's name. So now my registration is done. I've got my client number here. Then I would then move in to demonstrate other things that these clients can do after the registration. So I'm just going to take this client number. So again, as part of this registration, once it's done, in that email that the client has provided, we're also going to send a notification saying you have successfully registered. This is now your client number. And if you need to log back into the system, make sure you're using your registered email to access the system. Okay. So I'd log out here and then log back in to then demonstrate other things that you can do in the system. So Microsoft again has logged me out and is telling me you've signed out of the accounts and it's a good idea to close all the browsers and log back in. So I'm just going to close all my browsers and then come back in to demonstrate other items. So now I'm logging back in with the same clients that I just created. Yeah, so let me show you again, as part of that authentication, let's assume I made a mistake or something, or I tried to enter the system. Microsoft is always going to validate this email to make sure that this email is registered before you can continue. So you can see here, it said we couldn't find an account with this email address. So clearly this is not a registered email. So this client would have to do the needful to be able to log in. So I'm going to do that. Since my email is valid, he accepted it and it brought me to my password page for me to put in my password. So I'm going to put in the password I registered with and then sign into the system. So now once you've got your registered clients, they're now signed into the system. Anytime they come back into the system, the first thing they would see is the home page. So we call this the dashboard page. On this page, there's a couple of things I would like to highlight here. So this landing page provides you multiple capabilities. The first thing that you're going to notice here is right here, there are little widgets on my dashboard. So it says my applications, my rights and permits, my notification. This is a very this is a snapshot on how this client can see some of the activities related to them. So for example, as they lodge application, this is a quick space that they can see, oh, you have an application lodge, you need to complete, you have a couple of them that are pending completion, you need to upload documents, et cetera, et cetera. Then they rights and permit widget is where they get the summary of the rights or permits that they have. If they've got prospecting rights, it can tell you how many is active. You can also see your mining rights, depending on what you have, the instrument that you have, the system will provide that. And you can, right now, this client is new. Everything is showing 0 because I haven't done anything on this client. I just registered this client. But as we submit our applications and actions and events evolve, these widgets are going to account for that and show this client at the tip of their finger without them going to multiple places to dig. My notification is a very interesting one, and this is so interesting because anytime the system sends out a communication, we show a trace here for the client. For example, a way to visualize this is if it's maybe time to renew your prospecting rights, and we have a rule to send out communication 60 days before their renewal. We send out that communication through the system, and a copy of that communication can also be seen here. So this client has multiple ways to get communication. One of them is you're sending communication to their emails. And sometimes with what we've seen in the industry, clients can say, oh, I didn't see it in my email. Then the next step is on their dashboard here, you actually have a dedicated widget where you can see all communications that has been sent. So again, depending on where you are in the widget, if you click on view details, the system will then bring you to the exact section and expose that information, and you can click on it and see all the details and action as required. On the left-hand side here is where you've got all the functionalities lined up for this client. Again, everything is neatly organized in modules for ease of use. So the client is going to come in here and they can see some of the actions and permissions that they can perform. Again, I'm doing this demonstration from an environment where we're still doing some work and we're still pushing a lot of codes into it. But by the time we're ready to go to production, some things that are lined up here, the client would not be able to perform them. So some of these functions are strictly for the ministry staff, and some are for the client. So again, in the module, the only thing you would see are the things that the client can perform. For example, in my case here, they can manage their consultants, they can lodge applications, and appeal and litigation is something that we're currently working on, and we would provide functions based on whatever we've been advised to allow them to do. Okay, so now I'm here. I think this is maybe something additional I want to mention here is the ability to manage consultants. So right now, and again, in some of the gaps that has been identified as well in the current process of working in the existing system, sometimes you have consultants that are hired by companies to help them out, but majority of the time you're going to have these consultants linked to the applications. So they're submitting the applications in their name instead of submitting the application on behalf of the company. So a concept that this system provides is something we call managed agents. In your case, we'll call them, managed consultants or representatives. So what happens here is when I register myself as a client, I can then identify who do I want to give authority to work on my behalf. For example, it could be a legal representative in the company. It could be somebody in HR. It could be a contractor that I hired specifically to show up in the company. And every single day you show up, your job is to lodge applications, help us look at our rights and follow up with renewals and other activities that has been defined. Now, to be able to do that, the company would have to grant this person. One thing is they do a contract outside by hiring somebody and giving them a contract and signing documents and shaking, getting their handshakes in. Another thing is in the system, we have to mimic that behavior. And the handshake we do in the system is coming in here. Judith, who owns this Bay Mining Corporation, has now hired someone. And in my case, I could say that I hired, let's see. And it has to, behind the scene, it has to be a registered client. So whoever you're adding here as a consultant must have also done the same registration that I just did earlier. So that person must have registered in the system with an actual email. If they're an individual, we need to validate in Home Affairs that they exist in Home Affairs, and then they can actually come in here and then you can link them. So right now I don't have much clients here in this system, but the concept here is once this consultant is done, I can come in here, find that consultant and link that consultant to me. And once I link that consultant to me, moving forward, anytime I go into my client details, in this tab, I can see all my linked consultants. As you can see here, there are active consultants and removed consultants. So the reason why we do this separation, we understand that sometimes companies can hire consultants and they could fire them, or people can change jobs, or life happens, or somebody can take a sick leave. So this helps. This is how the clients can control their consultants. So again, in this same managed consultant function, you can remove a consultant when their contract is done, or if you decide to remove them and you can add new ones. But this tab here allows you in real time to see all the consultants related to that client. And then moving forward, if this consultant's job is to lodge applications, they would be able to log into the system and then lodge applications on behalf of the company that have hired them. Okay. So now for the client management module, so the first thing on the agenda, I think I'm going to stop here. I would summarize by saying that this system captures complete client profiles and provide the ministry with a reliable database of all their stakeholders. The goal here is to make sure that these clients are unique and they're consistent, so that when people, if you have clients in Western Cape, people in other regions can also search them up and see a history of that client and see all their rights and see whether they're in compliance or not in compliance. That's one of the main objectives of this system, to streamline your client database and provide you reliable information for your stakeholders. And of course, as I mentioned again, what's to come in the future, integration and verification in Home Affairs and CIPC. Okay. So with that, I'm going to wrap up here and then move into the second item on the agenda, which is lodgement of application. I think this has timed. I stayed a little too long on the screen. I think it's timed out, so I'm just going to refresh.
Judith, you're at about 6 minutes left. Find your time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think it timed out. I had a timeout session, so just a moment here. I'm going to try to sign in. Okay. So for application lodgement, the in the new system the applicants or the prospectors would have an online guided form that would help them lodge their application. So again, the system can handle multiple types of application, but for this morning, we're just going to focus on lodging an application for a prospecting right. So there are two steps that we've now defined for the lodgement of an application into the system. So the first one is what we call you initiate the step, and this is where you're defining your area, making the necessary payments, identifying the applicants, etc. Then the second step is where, from what what the business and the subject matter experts had explained, is that some of these applications are heavy on document uploads. So we have a second step dedicated for these applicants to upload their documents, so they have enough time to make that upload and make sure that they're uploading quality documents instead of rushing to upload documents to secure an area. So when I select my application type, again, every application type is configured based on specific fields. One of the requirements here is I would have to define the minerals that I'm interested in. So I would select my minerals. Then the next step would then be to go in and define the area. So again, how we navigate, there are two ways to define your area. You either go directly into the map, or you would impute your cell IDs. So again, every application is driven by region. So you would have to define your ministry region, and based on that region, when you go in to define your area, we want to make sure that you're within the boundary of that region. So in my scenario here, I'm just going to navigate to the map again. This is I'm going to spend a little bit more time to speak about this grid implementation. So with the new the current way that you have in the existing system is the use of farms and parcels. So with this project came a big shift in terms of our area of interest selection. So we have the grid system implementation. What we've done now is from this application, we've integrated into the map viewer. The map has zoomed into the extent of South Africa, specifically Western Cape is exactly what I'm looking at here. And you can navigate through this grid. So instead of relying solely on farm parcels to describe where an application is located, the system uses something standardized grid cells to then allow that selection. And as you zoom into the map, the map is going to go through different layers. It goes through different layers, the sectors, sections, sets, blocks, groups to then get you into the grid. So when you're in the grid, the goal of the grid is to provide the ability for you to select your area of interest. And this gives us the ability to accurately determine the availability status of every piece of land without confusion with overlaps and issues related to spatial confusion. Applicants can select the area of their application with clear information related to that cell. So what you have here for each of this grid, each of the cells that you're seeing here is each of them represent about 1.2 hectares. So if I'm looking to choose an area, I would have to select one or multiple cells, and that will come together to form my area of land. Now, what we do with this grid is we overlay this grid. Behind the scene, there is still, again, it's important to note that this grid implementation we strive to preserve your legacy data. So behind the scene, we've got your surveyor general layer, which still shows all historical farm parcels and all the information related to your farms and parcels. And then we also have the deed layer, which reinforces the correct legal ownership of these parcels. So we overlay that, and then when you select your cells here, we do the land availability check, and we would then allow the system to process your selection and come up with what exactly you're looking to select. So from the map here, I could decide to select the map, but for this demo, I highlighted an area that I wanted to use to show you a couple of behaviors. So I'm just gonna, again, the map tool is it provides you with very lots of tools that you can use here. I'm just gonna use the query functionality to drill down to a specific area. And in the industry, in reality, this is how most industry users would do. They use the map, investigate, they know an area that they are selected in, they hope to do work on, they can bookmark that area and then come back at a later time. So in my case, I have this specific cells, I've done my prospecting, I have this specific cell and I want to zoom pretty close to that area. So now that I'm in this area, and I'll just zoom out a little bit so you can visualize the grid. There's something you would see here, and this is why I wanted to zoom in here to be able to demonstrate this function and show you some of all the capabilities and possibilities that you can do in this map. Now, one of the rules that we were told to implement is the ability to check for existing rights and permits, and the grid implementation is great at doing that. We're able to see here that there is a right here, a prospecting right already exists in this space. Now, if I do my selection and it overlaps this application, overlaps this existing right, there are some validations that the system would have to perform. So let's assume I'm going to go ahead and try to make a selection around this area. So this is the area I'm trying to select. Once I've drawn my polygon, I would submit. The system will process and again provide clearly and intuitively on the screen the land availability check. So the things you see in green tells me that those cells are available. I can proceed with them. There is no existing application there. There is no existing prospecting rights. The one you see in yellow, as you can see in my selection, I overlapped this existing prospecting rights that has already been issued and is active. So the system processes the land availability in yellow, which means it's conditionally available. We have to check based on the minerals. Do they have similar minerals with your application or not, for us to determine if you can continue? Then the one you have in red clearly shows that those cells are processed as not available because they're either in the restricted layers or the exclusion layers. And what I mean by that is it could be that there is a park, a historical park, and you cannot select on that park. You can't do mining on that park. So again, how do we get here? There's a lot of work that goes in to get here. So we have working with the GIS team and collecting all this spatial information, loading the layers. There's still a lot more work being still done behind the scene. But with what we've been given and what we've loaded, this is just an example of what you would expect to see in reality. So as you can see, when I try to proceed, the system told me there are some unavailable cells present in this selection. You have to drop them for you to move forward. And this is a very clear example where you don't want somebody submitting an application with a restricted area, for example, a park, because at the end of the day, the ministry is going to reject this application because you're not allowed to mine on a park. So the system makes those spatial intersection rules ahead of time, saves the ministry time, saves the applicant time and money. This is how they see that transparency. This is how they have trust. They build trust in how the country is operating their mining processes. So I would then have to keep just my available cells. I'm going to remove the unavailable ones, and I'm going to try to submit again. The system is going to then lock in my selection, and I can confirm this. So once I confirm, I'm back into the application. The system has now pre-populated those cell IDs, and I'm going to show you what the system is going to do now. So once I click next, the system is throwing an error. It's saying the area you selected overlaps an existing right for similar minerals. So that means that right that I overlapped, that means the yellow cells overlaps that prospecting right, and that prospecting right has aggregates as part of their minerals. So I cannot continue. So the system is saying you can remove this specific, it actually tells you exactly the cells that you can remove to move forward. And you can take that error message and take out the cells here, or I can go back into the map and make a different selection. But just to save time, let's assume I say I don't want aggregate anymore. I'm going to change my mineral and maybe go with a different mineral. I just want to show you how the system would react. So I have to remove this and select a new mineral. So once I select a different mineral, I click next. The system then allows me to proceed to the next step, but it still gives me a warning. It says your application overlaps an existing right and permit. It's allowing me because the minerals are dissimilar. It's not the same minerals, but it's warning me and telling me there is still an overlapping existing right. Just keep in mind during the assessment process, there is a risk here. Decision would have to be made whether you would get this area, but just by continuing, you're acknowledging that you accept the conditions that we're just showing you here. So if I say yes, then I can continue with my application. And again, similar to what I've shown you before, I'm just going to quickly fill in all of these red fields to allow us to move forward. So I'm going to define my prospecting type. Does it have bulk sampling or no bulk sampling? And I could say maybe 5 years. My duration of operation, I'm expecting 5 years. And then I can explain my, again, planned operation, and then select my criteria for HDSA ownership. Then I'm going to move through the tabs. There are more additional tabs. So the next tab you're going to see is where I then link this applicant. So I'm going to add my company. And again, at every given point, you can see the details. I can see the details of my my client, and it could be a consultant performing this action as well. And then the area of interest. So remember, we did a selection in the previous step, and this is the tab that then shows you all the details related to that selection. You can see my cell. The system has automatically computed the total hectares based on the number of cells that I've selected. As I mentioned, each cell represents about 1.2 hectares. So you sum that up, and I have about 10 cells here, or 12 cells. So it's multiply that to give you the total hectare. And a couple of information, again, that's then going to come from those layers I talked about. So the main layer being the surveyor general layer. From that cell selection, we can determine the farm under that selection. Again, this is all processed behind the scene based on the data we receive. And this is why it's important that the quality of the data that we receive is truly represents the status of lands and parcels and farms in an accurate manner. But this returns from that selection. You can see the farm, the district, the SG21 digit code, all of those information is returned. And down here, the system is identifying here that there is actually an overlapping right in my application. So this is really helpful so that when the ministry staff is reviewing this application, they can quickly see all this information at the tip of their finger. Now I'm going to go ahead and click next, and then make my necessary payment. And for the necessary payment, the prescribed payment for a prospecting fee is $500. So 500 Rand. So I'm going to go in to make that payment online. The online platform that we're using, we're integrating to the Adumo online payments. That's going to be the vendor that will be providing the payments. I'm going to enter my credit card details here. Again, pretty much dummy data for testing. But in reality, when the time comes, the client, when we're in production, these clients would have to enter their credit card details, and we're going to do the validation. So once you've entered all the details here, depending on your method of payment, if the payment is successful, we will get a successful message. And if something fails behind the scene, you're also going to get that error message. So as you can see here, the payment is successful, and this application is finalized, and I have it all registered here. So something you're going to notice here is we give an application number to this. There are two types of numbers you're going to see me deal with. One of them is the application number. Another one is the file reference number. So file reference number is tied to the right of the permit. But this one is just an application number. And an easy way to visualize this is you think about applying for a visa. When you apply for a visa, you get an application. But when the visa is granted, you get a visa, and that visa has a unique number. So every time you go back to renew that visa, the country or their immigration officers would have to go back to find your visa and then renew that to extend the date of to issue you a new visa. So it's just the same concept. And I'm trying to use this analogy because we Africans, we travel a lot, and most people would be familiar with the visa concept. Okay. So now at the top here, there's something in red that you would see here, and it tells you you have 7 business days to upload your files and complete your application. Failure to comply will result in automatic refusal of your application. Again, this brings us to that second step that I talked about, where you would have to initiate and then go back to finish the upload of your application. So there is a timeline to that. To complete the application, then I have to go here. So there are 2 ways. I can decide to go search for my applications. So once you go to search, the system would automatically just show me, this is the application you have, all the applications you've submitted. This is how you can see, I can see all my applications. And this one says, my status here is pending completion. As you can see, I have the complete application capability here. So when I click here, the system opens this page and then allows me to upload all the relevant documents. What the system does ahead of time for the client is right in front of them, based on a predefined rule, we will produce all the relevant documents that you need to. There's no guesswork here. If the ministry said 20 documents are mandatory, you're going to see the 20 documents here, and it's up to this client to upload their necessary documents. And in scenarios where they don't upload, they won't be able to complete this function. And then you could also be asking, how do you verify what they've uploaded? One way that verification is going to happen is during the review process. The ministry staff would also have access to all these documents. They can view them. If they need this client to re-upload or revise something, they will send out a communication to them, and they're able to come back into the system to then make those revisions and replace the documents. So just to save time, I'm just going to quickly move through some of these documents, and examples of these documents that are being uploaded is things like your social labor plan, BEE documents, etc. So again, every application is unique, and depending on the application type, the system will determine what needs to be uploaded. So in my scenario here, I'm done uploading all the relevant documents. I'm going to click next and fully complete this application. Then the system tells me here, your application is successfully submitted. So if I went back to, and this is now when you get your file reference. So you see the file reference number, which tells you this is in draft. It hasn't been approved yet. It hasn't been reviewed. It hasn't been accepted. But for this application you submitted, there is a file reference number linked to it, and is in a draft mode.
Judith, just a quick note, you're at 50 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. So again, for the application capability, there's a lot these clients can do. They can withdraw their application. They can also respond to, again, there's a revised application here, and this is a function they would use. If the ministry is reviewing the application, or for example, maybe it's going through the MPRDA review, and they find that there are documents missing, and they need this client to change the documents that they've provided. They'll send out a communication. Client is going to come through this function, see that exact application with the instruction, and they're able to action on that without any guesswork. Okay. So, and then I'm going to switch quickly into the internal portal. But I think to summarize what I've just shown you here, this system provides a guided, error-reducing application process that simplifies the applicant's journey. You know, when you have things laid out here, some of the things that we've seen in other jurisdictions is that the investors can plan with certainty. They have confidence in this predictable process. And again, overall, you know, investors, if they're happy, you benefit from that, from economic boost. The grid system I just showed you aligns with global best practices, providing the ministry with a clear record of land allocation, real-time visibility of their land status in, and also traceable history of events that has happened spatially. And then community, again, there's a ripple effect from this. You know, the communities benefit. They can see exactly where rights are being granted. They gain trust in the system. And, you know, you're also minimizing conflict by having all these special rules and validations. Then I'll just finalize here by saying, there is also, beyond the tangible benefits that you get from having an implementation, there is clear cut and interesting to the investors. You also have intangible benefits. So you've got your improved transparency. Transparency means a lot in this industry. We've seen it time and time again. We get feedbacks from jurisdictions we've worked for. Faster decision making in so many implementation, reviewing application goes from number of years to few months to few weeks, depending on how teams are organized, and also overall gaining trust in the entire process of how you work. Now I'm going to move into the third piece, and that third piece is, I'll keep it very high level, but the third element I will show is the portion related to the ministry back office, where they're doing that review for review of an application. So similar to what I showed earlier, this is going to be, again, the website for the internal. So depending on the registered clients, the users that we've been asked to register and allow into the system, that's what's going to determine who can log into the system. So if I'm just going to go in here. I've set up myself as a super user to be able to do this demonstration. So I'm going to log into this portal. And once you log in, again, another way to think about this portal is the back office. This is really where most of the staff is going to be spending their time in the system. So once they log in, they get the dashboard. And this time I'm going to switch my role now to Judith, a staff of maybe a super user, a regional manager, or somebody who works with the Mine Economics Group, for example. So if you log into the system, you're going to land on the dashboard. Again, similar to what you've seen, but the dashboard has different information it shows from what I just showed you for the client. Now, the internal portal is more focused on the work that the ministry staff have to do. It's focused on what do you have to do in this system to handle day-to-day operations. What we have here is a snapshot of any recent application that has been submitted for my group. I'm able to see here, and I can also see recent task that has been created by the system. In the left-hand side here, notice that compared to the previous portal, there is a lot more actions that you can perform here. And this is because, as I mentioned again, this system can determine the type of users to then configure the kind of actions and permissions that they will have. So ideally for the ministry staff, majority of the time, there's a lot more that they are doing that requires their attention. So I'm going to focus more on this function called the to-do list. The to-do list is really literal. It is what it is here. This is where you can see this as your task management tool. And this is one of those components that really transforms the way the business works. From all of our many years of experience, this is one of those game changers. What happens in this system is when an application, so again, to arrive at this point, there's a lot of collaborative design and requirement work that goes behind this. And I do want to say thank you to everybody who has been supporting us with these requirements. We can only get to this point when we have the right people providing us with the requirements and design. So with that requirement, what happens here is for every application type, if that application type requires some sort of review and decision making, we need to map that. Then we're going to work in collaboration with the end users and the subject matter experts to define what that process looks like. Once we define the process, we finalize it, and then we're now coming to the system behind the scene and configure that process. And what that process tells you is, and this is an example I can take, I'm going to take this one. So this is an application that has been submitted into the system. So if I open this is a prospecting right application that has been put into the system. And this is exactly what I submitted this morning. So this is me, my company, I submitted this, and these are all the information. Automatically, the system identifies that this application that has been submitted for a prospecting right needs to be reviewed and before a decision is made. So it would create a task. Now, something you will notice here, when I talk about the process, this is what we call the process. This is what we produce in those many, many hours of discussing with DMPR subject matter experts. We want to understand, how do you review a prospecting rights application? What tasks are involved? What can we automate to make your life easier? What can we not automate because you need to have a human being looking at these things? And the outcome of all those meetings, we would arrive at having something like this. And this is a real-time process. So from what you see in this process, it's not just it comes off as a diagram, but it's not just a diagram. This is an actual piece of software implementation. What this process tells me right now is that right now, my application is in the review application step. client calls me and like, oh, I submitted this application a week ago. I need to know what is happening. It's so easy for the staff to respond. You can look up come here, find the application, open it up, look at the process, and you can clearly see, oh, we haven't really started the review. This is just in the beginning stages of the review. So you need to wait. Or you can go to your portal and search for your application and look at the status of the application. You will be able to see that information as well. So while you're here, so again, the process outlines all the necessary steps that needs to be taken. For the prospecting right, just for interest of time, if I have to do the end-to-end, you're going to be on this call for more than 5 hours. So I'm just going to show a couple of tasks, but the goal here is for you to understand the concept. But what is modeled here is there's part of the application validation is you're going to review the content, initial review of the application content, because you don't want your staff investing a lot of time if this application is not, the documents, for example, are not up to the standard that you're expecting. So there's a preliminary review. This review looks at some of the spatial information, and if you decide to accept this application, it would then go through the accepted route. If you decide to revise, it will go through revising it and going back to the applicant, and then applicants will respond to it. But if we're going with a positive path, once it's accepted, then the system would then need to create the necessary adjudication task and also the NEMA required task. And some of those NEMA required tasks, you would be looking at the bar requirement, SR and EIA, depending on the type of application. And of course, collecting the financial provision. And if let's assume everything goes well, best case scenario, this review is going in a positive direction. The goal here is that the process would flow through all of this task until it gets to the final decision maker, who's going to look at all the rods that has been produced by, by the adjudication task. They're going to look at the compiled submission and recommendation to then make their final decision. And what are the outcomes? There's always two outcomes. Is either they're granting it or they're refusing. If they are granting, then the client would have, in the case of prospecting right, they would have to then pay their first prospecting fee for them to go into execution. And once execution is done, the right is issued, and they would have to go to NPTRO to lodge that right. So in terms of the flow, that's the first thing I wanted to highlight. Then on here as well, something else you would do here is when tasks are created here, they just sit here. Now, every department will have to think about how they want to organize the task. From what we've seen in other jurisdictions, sometimes you have managers who come in here and assign tasks to people. So they're going to come in here. Every task is created for a specific group. And when you're in a specific group, you're going to have specific individuals on that. So for example, this task, again, this is just our demo environment. So I'm here as a super user, but your reality, you're going to have Mine Economics group. You would have MEM group, you have SLP group, and you have individuals in those groups, whether they're regional managers or the staff are that belong to that group. So when the managers come in here, they would see exactly who the list of people, and they can toggle on this thing to assign the specific task to them. And once they confirm, the task will be assigned. Another way.
Sorry, Judith, just a quick note. We're at 1 hour now, 60 minutes.
Okay. I'm wrapping up in a few minutes.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Then in cases where, again, if it's a self-driven team, for teams that are very self-organized, they're not being managed by managers, people can come in here and pick up tasks for themselves. So in this case, if I went with this example, I would assign this task to me. And as you can see, the task is already assigned and I can execute the task. So not only that we're creating tasks here, you are also able to manage your task. And something we've seen in the industry and that takes a lot of time would be when people start working on applications, life happens. People go on leave, people change jobs. One of the benefits that you would gain from having a system like this is when a task is assigned and something happens in life and people have to move along, you can actually, you don't have to keep this task for 1 year waiting for X person to come back. You can come in here, managers can come in here and reassign this task to somebody else. All they have to do is go back to that function that I showed you, find somebody else in that group and move this task. All of the information captured on this task up until they reassign those information. Let's assume Mr. John has already done 2 weeks of work validating this application and entering his comments and talking to the client. All of those information are stored on the task and you don't lose that. This is another space where you can see priority task. And this is very important because from what we know, you have a lot of your requirements, like the REMA requirements that is driven by timeline. You have 90 days to do this. This is exactly how you can also manage that. So depending on the rules that are put in place, this task list is actually, if a task is coming due, it will be highlighted in red, telling the managers and people in that group, this is a high priority task, it's critical, you need to pay attention to this. So there is a lot more to benefit here, but let me move forward and show you the look and feel of what, an example of what a task would look like if I'm executing a task. If I went in here, I've assigned this task. So there's an application that came in and I looked, okay, my manager assigned this to me. I'm going to look, okay, this is a prospecting right application. I have to review this. It's been assigned to me. I'm going to execute the task. Once you execute, this is the page where you actually perform the task. One thing you see at the top here, you're going to see context. What is the context of what has been given? You don't need to call your manager or email or walk over to their office. You're seeing the context of this task that has been given to you at the top here. You can see the related application. This is how you can make your complete your task by also looking at this application. And this pop-up, you can open it on a different window. You can open it as a pop-up. But this is the content of the application that was submitted. You need this information. Why? Because you have to be able to see the attached documents that they've uploaded so you can open them up and review them. You want to see the area that they have selected. You can go to the map to see this area that they've selected and linked to this application. You can actually go into it to see it. You see the applicant details. You, as a ministry staff, if I want to look to see that this company is still active, I can see it, the client is active. There's a lot at the tip of your finger that saves you time. You have all your context in one space. A very also great element of a task function is the checklist. So the checklist is something we build, again, in collaboration with the stakeholders, the subject matter experts. And the question here is, what steps does this person have to follow to finish the review of this? The reason why this is put in place is because you want to keep things consistent. When you hire a new employee, they should know what to do. When people get a task and move along, the next person getting this task should know what they're supposed to do. You don't need to chase down your regional manager or wait for them to come to you for you to determine what you need to do. So this, again, we don't come up with this. We explain. The business really take time, and that's part of the exercise that that has come up with engagement with Western Cape. They defined exactly with other regions as well. So many people were involved to come up with the checklist items that needs to follow. But ultimately, as this person is going through their task, they are going through each one and they're identifying that they have completed them. Again, this comes in as an accountability factor, because you can't hold somebody accountable if you haven't shown them what they need to do and how they need to do it. So this outlines what they need to do. And as they go through, they're saying here, I'm taking accountability that I have performed the special checks. I looked at the area and I prepared a report and I've completed. I could also add additional comments to say, you know, some of the things I did. I spoke with Mr. John and we discussed about this. You can add for each of this item. But ideally, what we've been told, all the checklist item is mandatory. They must complete them. And when it's not applicable, the system provides an option for you to say it's not applicable, and you will put a justification on why you said this is not applicable for your review. So we also, right now, I'm completing this thing right now at once. But reality is, these steps could take weeks it could take months. And this is why we have the save capability. I could do 2 things here, and at the end of today, it's only 2 things I achieved. I'm going to save and then close my task. And when I come back the next time, I can open this task and the system will show me exactly all the informations I've captured prior, and I can continue. So part of the things that you're going to do here as preliminary review is, after looking at the documents, does the client have to revise anything? And if there is yes, they need to revise something. The system shows you exactly the options. Which documents do they need to revise? Which documents are we sending back to the client? I can select, maybe out of all the documents we've asked them to upload, everything looks good, except these 2, their work program and BEE. I can select it, finish my task. The client is going to get a notification telling them you need to go and revise these 2 documents, and they can see any instructions that has been provided. But in my case here, I would say no, let's go with the happy part. Everything looks good. You've taken me 2 weeks now, and I've completed everything that I need to, and I'm going to accept this application. I've viewed the acceptance document, got my RM to sign off on the acceptance decision. So now I'm going to go in and accept that this application is accepted. Once I'm done, there could be documents that needs to be uploaded. I'm going to attach that, for example, and then add my comments and complete my task. So once you complete your task, the system will then show the task is completed and what happens in the process. Okay, remember, application number is 0379. So what happens here is, once that task is completed, for that application, the system would then look at that process and trigger the next task. The next task that has been triggered is to go ahead and start the adjudication. And again, because this is a prospecting right application, there are specific tasks, the MEM, mine economics, specific tasks that would have to be created. And this is exactly what the system would do. It would create those tasks, and again, tasks will get assigned, and the responsible individuals would then start working on compiling the ROD for each of these tasks. So just for interest of time, I think again, I could open one more just to show you each task follows the exact same structure. What is different is the content of the information that needs to be within in the task. First one I showed you had about 15 checklist items. This task is pretty straightforward. There are 2 checklist items, and the main requirement of this task is, if the state accountant is done, they need to upload some sort of ROD here. So again, the process will continue in this manner until it's finally approved. And once the application is approved, the right is issued. And again, once the right is issued, an invoice is created, the client can pay for an invoice. So I can show you, I'll just pull up an example of a granted right to just show you some of the elements. So again, for this review process, I'm not going to complete it because it's going to take a long time. But I have an example here of a right that has gone through the entire end-to-end review and it was issued. So if we take this right as an example, as you can see, this right has been issued, is in Western Cape region, and this is the holder, Gold Corp. Again, these are not your migrated data yet. We're still working on it. The goal here is just, these are some of the data that we created behind the scene to be able to showcase some of this capability. An interesting function that you will see in the system is, once you have a file reference number, you can access that file reference number. And the way to see this file reference viewer is almost like a biography of someone. Is the abstract of your car, is everything that has transpired on this right. This is a one-stop shop where you can see that information. If this right has, you're able to see the history, you can see when the commencement date was, when it's going to be the expiry date, the duration on this right, you know, where the application that gave birth to this right, you can see all of that information, the operations that are performing on this right, the minerals, the area of the, you can go to the map and view this right on the map. You're going to see the holders of this right. The holder is here, and you can see the details of the holder here. You can see more details about the area related to the farms, etc. Now, as the right history or this file reference number evolves as operations are performed on this right or on a permit. Now, at some point, you're going to get to the phase where you need them to start submitting their plans and you have their work programs. And as you approve them and validate them and establish them in the system, we're going to be populating them here. You have the payment history that shows you any payment collected in the system. And sometimes, reality of life, and it's happened to us where you go to shop online and your card is rolling and then you have to contact the card. If that payment was successful, you're going to see that that payment is going to be linked here. This is history. You're going to be seeing the historical payments that has been done. Any obligations that has been created. For example, during the review of this application, they were asked to submit their bar assessment report. They submitted it, it was reviewed, and the staff marked it as compliant. The whole history is here. Financial provision, you're going to be able to see it. How did they submit it? It was through bank guarantee, and this was the date. You can see that. Any invoices created for their prospecting fees, you can see the history of the invoice and you can see the status of the invoice. Is it paid or is it unpaid? All of that information is here. If it's a prospecting right and we have a payment schedule for the prospecting fees, you can see the schedule. So the client can say, oh, I didn't know I had to do my payment. We put this thing, they get a notification with their schedule, we still put it on the right so that you can see in one-stop shop all the things that you need to do to sustain this right. Any attached document to this right will be made available here, communications, and the reviews as well. You can see all the review tasks as they're being completed. As you can see, when I look at this tab, I can see all of these tasks. Again, this tab is something that the ministry would have to decide, do they want to expose this to the client or they just want to see this internally for themselves? Then the tab here, tells I can see all the tasks that has, if I'm a manager, regional manager, I'm trying to see, we have this priority application. I want to see what my team is doing. I can see they've all completed the task. What's remaining is now to ensure that this thing is lodged in MPTRO and there's no completion date here. So there's a lot of benefits you gain as well. The final tab I'll touch on here is the history tab that then shows you throughout the life cycle of this right. Every time an event or function is completed in the system related to this right, we would link that. This is how you follow the history and abstract. On this day, this application was put into the system. On this day, they renewed it. On this day, they asked us to do something to update the rights. So the history, this is where we tie all that history, and you can go in and see the details of the event when it was completed. So there is a lot more. And again, with the processes I've shown you, I know that your industry today, when decisions are made, they can be appealed. These are work in progress. These are some of the functions that we've handled a few weeks ago with finalizing the requirements and design, where, moving forward, moving at a really fast speed to have a lot of these functions are completed in the system. So again, appeal is one of them. When an appeal is lodged against a decision on an application, is going to have a reaction to the review process. So that appeal and the decision of the appeal, if it's upheld, the system can account for that, and the system has some other actions that it will need to take when an appeal is upheld. Promoting consistency in the way you do your review, promoting fairness, and also, above everything else, giving you at the tip of your finger enough data to make informed decisions on applications. So, and then the last piece of the agenda, which I've touched on, I've kind of shown you some of the searches that we have in the system. There's a lot of, for every module we build, we provide search capabilities, and you can do a lot of reporting. You can say, give me all the rights that were issued from this date to this date. There's a lot of things that you can do in the system for your reporting to continue to make informed decision. So I'm just gonna close here. I'll just summarize by saying this new mining system is more than just a software. it is a strategic tool for your national growth. If we look at from the ministry perspective, we're delivering efficiency, transparency, data-driven governance. Okay, decision making with data, you can't put a price on it. For investors, you're creating a predictable environment and a modern environment where these people are encouraged with their investment, and if your process is attractive on a global interest level, you stand to benefit from it. Again, the economy benefits from it. There is a boost. You have more investors interested in doing business. And then your communities as well. This strengthens accountability and builds trust on how mineral resources are managed. So I'll wrap up by saying, honorable ministers, members of the group, colleagues, by embracing this new system, South Africa is really taking a bold step forward towards building a mining sector that is globally competitive, transparent, and sustainable. So I would pause here, and maybe, Jim, I'll hand over to you, and DDG can maybe identify what's next on the agenda.
Yeah, thanks, Judith. I really appreciate the detail that you went into, and I think you did answer a lot of questions people probably do have. DDG, I would hand it back to you just to see what direction you'd like to go next.
No, thank you very much, Jim and Judith. I think each time we go through this, there is hopefully better understanding, as to what all of us can expect. Now, I think, Chair, I would be directed by yourself, Chair, as to whether we go on to Mr. Swart's brief, update on how many people have already legacy clients that have registered, or the Chair prefers that you go into a questions and answer session, Chair. I'll be directed by the Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Judith and Mr. Tan. I would prefer that we proceed with Mr. Swart, and then we will take questions all together. Before we do that, let me explain something to our guests. That this platform, okay, this is a portfolio committee of Parliament, and this platform is considered the precinct of Parliament. Now, in a portfolio committee of Parliament, only honorable members can participate because it's not a public hearing. It's a normal portfolio committee meeting. I'm raising this because I've seen a lot of questions on the chat, which is a direct participation. I don't want to be found flouting the rules of Parliament. Having said that, I do understand that this presentation is actually achieving what we had hoped for, to educate the public, the stakeholders, and that is proven by the questions they are raising. Now, because I had not explained this, all those questions that are already put on the chat, we will ask on your behalf and ask the presenters to respond to each of them. But from now on, please don't participate. I really would like you to participate and get answers, but unfortunately the rules don't allow. But we will take cognizance that it's in the best interest of the public and allow those questions to be responded to at a later stage. With that said, can we proceed to Mr. Swart?
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Swart, can you proceed, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and DDG.
Just wait a bit. Mr. Helepi, can you please mute? Mr. Helepi, can you please mute your microphone? Thank you. Mr. Swartz, my apologies. Can you proceed?
Thank you, Chair. My presentation will be very short. I'm just going to concentrate on the client registration, and I'll go live into the system. I just want to share my screen quickly. So, Chair, I'm just going to sign in live into the system quickly. As I said, Chair, I'm just going to concentrate on client registration. That is the part of the system that is live in the Western Cape. So these functions is available on the internal platform. If we want to see how many clients have registered, we can use, let me just go to the date and clean this. So the system went live on the 15th of October. So I'll just type in that date until today's date, which is the 3rd. So from our legacy clients, 131 clients have registered on the system. The legacy clients are the clients that has either existing rights or existing permits and applications that is in process. This relates to about 52% of all our legacy clients. We do have a strategy where we try and convince our outstanding clients to register, and we hope that before we go to the next phase, the majority of the clients will have registered on the system, Chair. On the other functions, on the dashboard, as Judith has indicated, if there are tasks allocated to internal staff, it will be shown on this specific function, which is not available at the moment. Client management, we can register clients, but that is not available at present. This function is mostly for small-scale miners that might not have access to technology, and they can have walk-in clients into our offices, and we can assist them to lodge their applications on the system. On the update clients, we can, as Judith also explained, I just want to type in any company, Rio Tinto. There is a unique client number that has been allocated to this mining company. Like Judith has explained, if this company applies for any rights in the Republic, it will be listed under the profile of a specific company. So you don't need to go and re-register for every application that you lodge. This is a unique client number that has been allocated to this company. So wherever you apply in Mpumalanga or Limpopo, you will use this profile, and all your applications and all your rights will be listed under this profile. If I go into this company, and Chair, I will go quickly through this because there's some personal information. This is real information. And in terms of a POPIA Act, this cannot be made public. So the client identification details are details that has already been pre-populated into the system. It is information that we have provided to the service provider. This client has registered, and we can see that if we go to the correspondence address and the phone contact information, the client has completed that information. The document that needed to be uploaded, because it's a company, is the CIPC documents. The company has uploaded that, and we can download to verify that it is the actual document, open the document, and then we can confirm that it has been uploaded. If we want to see any clients that has not been, that has not registered, Chair, we can use the client identification code, or we can go to a company details, but let me just use a client code, and we will search. The system will pick up this code. There's no, sorry, it's the company name. Let me just go to I just want to go to a company that has not registered. Sorry, Chair, the system is just a bit. So I've chosen this company Agline. The client number is indicated here. If I go to the specific company, Chair, just want to. So these details are the details that has been pre-populated again. This company has not registered on the system. We can see that all the information that is on the system that needs to be populated has not been populated. It's one of our legacy clients that we need to convince to register on the system. So, Chair, from my side, that is basically that. We don't have more information than the client registration. That is the first phase of a system that has been rolled out. As Judith has explained, when the next phases are rolled out, it would be part of a review and the application lodgement. Then that will also be available on this part of the functions and tools that we can use. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Swart. Chair, that is the demo from our side, Chair, and we hand it back over to yourself. Thanks, Mr. Swart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swart and DDG. Honorable members, those are the two presentations, comprehensive, I believe. Can I see hands that wants to engage the presentation? And while we do that, there will be questions directed to the department. You will note them, Mr. Makubela and Mr. Swart. There will be questions going to Judith and the team, Mr. Tan. You must specify, honorable members, who you are asking the question. I will take Honorable Zungula, Honorable Slepe, Honorable Zondi. For now, I will take those three hands. Okay, Honorable Hassan. Honorable Nchabeleng. And the normal prescribed time will apply. And when that time comes, even if it's at the time where you are getting a response, I will stop the responder to your question to indicate that the time allocated has been exhausted. Can I start with the questions that are on the chat? Judith, are you able to see them?
Yes, I can see them.
Yeah, let's go through them before we allow honorable members to respond. So the first one would be coming from, there are many. I believe it comes from Tanya, who has got two questions. One, when will this system be active in the Northern Cape? And what is the link to access this system? Can we go through that one?
Yeah, so for the link to access them, the link will be made available. So the process we've used for Western Cape before we went to production is they sent us the list of people who should have access and their permissions and roles, and we configured it, and they all, we set them up and they all confirmed that they can log in. But that would only happen when our it's when the timeline is set to roll out in Northern Cape. So I will hand over to Jim or DDG Macabella to answer the second part related to rolling out in Northern Cape. So Jim, I'm not sure if that's your question or you want to hand over to DDG.
Yep, sure. I could take it. And I would just add that Judith was mentioning internal users being deployed into the system with their roles. And that's at the direction of the regional office. With external users, the initial go live is an invitation to enroll. So it's very specific about legacy users. The objective is to honor existing clients in the system that hold rights. That's a first priority. So that first rollout is about enrolling external users. In terms of Northern Cape and other regions, the functionality that we're building in the application that Judith showed applies to all regions. So it is ready in that way. It comes down to the enrollment process and the data migration from each region into the system. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, the link, I think that's Judith answered that. Thanks.
Okay. Will the document upload size limit be increased? And will other payment options be allowed?
So document size, yes, there's always a constraint. When you're building a piece of software, there's always a constraint on size. But what we do with our document file size, and for the first round we asked what is the size limit? And we're working on a limit, but that could also be increased. But it's just important to, from a technical standpoint, the document size cannot be infinite. It has to have a boundary, but what we do is we try to extend that size as much as we can. So depending on your need, I believe what we have configured right now is enough to handle like heavy documents, tens and hundreds of pages. But again, when it gets down to it, what we will be expecting is the tangible information. What size exactly are you thinking of? How many megabytes are you looking at?
Okay. Letitia van den Berg asks that if I have an existing right or license, will I be notified on the system that there is an overlapping application for another mineral on my mining right or license?
As part of the requirements that we were given and what was signed off, there is no portion of that that says an overlapping report will be sent to that holder. But again, if that's and that's some of the things we're expecting as we move into our UAT and testing and training. Maybe these are some of the changes that you will be gathering. Again, when it comes to software development, there is always a future of enhancing and improving, but it always has to be done through a precise manner of going through like change requests, what that change would look like, what are the possibilities, and we go from here. But as of today, with what's already designed, approved, and implemented in this system, which I demonstrated, you will not be getting an automated report unless the ministry staff themselves decides to reach out to you.
Okay. Will a client be able to lodge objections or INAP registration into Section 10? Will Section 10 notices be published on the new system?
Yes, so we made accommodation to lodging appeal. That's something I just highlighted. Yes, in the system, if there is any objection to the decision that has been made, the client will be able to come into the system and then lodge their objection through the appeal function. And that would also have a reaction to the decision. So we also have scenarios where we've modeled into the process. They send Section 10 notices. Ministry staff completing the task would put together this document and we can automatically pick it up and send it out as automated notifications to the client.
Okay, there are two questions from Karina on grids, and one is on current rights. Will the current holders be able to verify that the new grid system capture their mining and prospecting right areas correctly before the system go live in Northwest. I believe that is referring to Northwest. The second one on grids as well. How does the cell grids follow current farm boundaries, which are not in square blocks, which have different right holders immediately next to each other with not linear boundary as per the current grid cells?
Okay, so to answer that one, Jim, I would let you take a jab on that one.
On the current rights, so this is a lot of the work that we're doing now in taking what we call operational layer, the attribute data that comes from SAMRAD and the spatial data, and bringing that onto the map, and with the grid then statusing. So the shape of a legacy right or an existing right does not change. The grid will identify that there is an existing right so that when a person selects that area from the grid, it acts accordingly, as Judith was showing, whether it's overlapping minerals or it's available for acquisition. On the second question, the size of the grid, when we put it into perspective at just over 1 hectare, will largely, it will overlap. It's irrelevant to the boundaries of the farm parcels, but it will pick up any farm parcels that partially or completely intersect that cell boundary, the selection boundary.
Okay. Spumelele Mbali asks that while he appreciates the need for a unique ID for each client, some companies have various subsidiaries which may be managed at central point by main group. That's a question. How can we address such arrangements without having to have 8 to 12 emails?
So for this one, I would like to hear from Mr. Peter with what they've done with enrollment. In this, is this a scenario that they've seen in Western Cape already?
Mr. Swart?
Yes, Chair. Unfortunately, each client has to have a unique client code. And apart from the fact that there are subsidiaries, there are different legal entities. And the right holder has a specific legal entity. So for each legal entity, we had to create a unique email address. And that is how the system has been set up, unless perhaps Jim also have some more to add to this. Thank you, Chair.
Any addition, Mr. Jim?
Yes, we did. As Peter said, we have encountered that. Each applicant does need to have a unique email. However, if companies have subsidiaries, the system is configured that responses can go to a single email. So at registration and through the application separate, yet notifications and alerts can go to a single email.
Okay. The South African diamond producers ask that will consultants who lodges information on the specific company's behalf do it through the company's profile or with their own ID linked to the specific company's details? Or if they lodge it through the company's platform, will you be able to limit or decide what access consultants will have on your behalf on your profile? An example is given. They can maybe track the progress of an application, etc., or just add specific information. Then if you have a need for more than one user for a specific company, can each one has supposed to have his or her own sign in details for a particular company? If multiple users are allowed, how many users are allowed for each company?
Okay, I will answer that. That's so many overlaying questions, but I'll answer that by sharing my screen. Can you see? Is
Yes.
it visible? Okay.
Yeah.
So to start with the first one, I'm not sure now the order of the question, but I'm gonna try to be close to answering as many as possible. So the consultant concept, to answer your question, the consultant would have their own profile. The reason is the law of our security, user security, and authentication is that you actually have to be a valid user of the system. So we cannot have an environment where we're allowing consultants to perform actions without being registered. We need to authenticate them, make sure it's they're real for the security of the system and the client that they're working on behalf of. So step one, consultant has to register themselves in the system, following this example that I demonstrated first. So you're going to come in there. If Bar Mining Corporation is hiring me as a consultant, I'm going to go in and register. I'm going to have my client ID, Judith Irele, and then second step, this Bay Mining Corporation then would log into the system. Whoever is handling this account would then log in using the managed consultants. This is how they're now going to add me. So now Judith's consultant, I'm a registered client. The company can then link me to themselves. So once that linking is done, the part of the linking, I was just hoping I could see something here so I can really show you. When you do that linking, one of the things that you do in that linking is defining what this client can do in the system. So let me see if this can happen here, because you're going to give permissions, and that's going to answer your next question related to what exactly can they do on your behalf in the system. So I'll show you an example. The way we grant the permission is it's a piece of software. There has to be rules, standardizations, and boundary. It has to be consistent across the board. You can't say for company A, I want this client to just update my name. Company B, I want them to update my address. The way we grant this permission is consistent and is at the level of the function. So when I add my consultant, I'm going to grant all the permissions. And these are all the permissions that you can grant in the system. And how this is laid out is by function. What function can they perform for you? If you want them to lodge application, that means anything related to the application, they will be able to see it. Why? Because as part of lodging an application, you're going to give them all your documents. They will be able to select the area. They will be able to make payments on your behalf. They will have to capture a lot of information. So you're giving them that access as a whole, because lodging an application is a step-by-step process. If you say you want to grant them access to lodge application, but you don't want them to withdraw the application, then you don't give them the permission. You can say, I want them to be updating my clients. Maybe you don't want them to have details to your client's information. You can, again, not grant them the access. This is how access are granted. And you can also add on the right. Outside of this functionality level, you can actually grant them on specific rights. For example, I can say, I need to give them access to do something, but I want to grant them access to only one of my prospecting rights. I don't want them seeing the other one. You can also do that. So all these are just like dummy data, just to give you the concept. So there are ways to control what you're giving them. And once you finish, they then get that permission and they are automatically linked to that client. Now, this agent, let's assume I'm an agent. I've now been granted access to work for Bay Mining Corporation, and this is me, and I log into the system. Once I log into the system would show me my dashboard. But on top of that, I'm logged into my own dashboard, but the system now recognizes that you're a consultant. So it's going to show you the list of all the people that you're operating for as their consultants. So if it's a one company that hired you, you will be able to move into the Bay Mining Corporation. You'll be able to move into their own dashboard and work on their behalf. And when you're lodging an application, automatically, this is how the system identifies. So when you log in to lodge an application or perform an action, the system would always ask you, who are you doing this thing for? Are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it for somebody else? If I put somebody else, the system can, let's assume I'm logged in as Bay Mining Corporation and I'm submitting an application for Peter or Jeddah, for example. The system can determine that this is someone different as a consultant applying for somebody else, and the system would automatically check, is this person an active consultant for this person before it would even allow you to proceed. So the system is smart in that sense. There are different ways and different aspects of the system that would validate this consultant and client relationship.
Okay, thank you.
I would, if I may, just add a couple of things to that. So, bringing best practices to the system and transition, what we're looking for is an orderly transition. So, existing right holders, as I mentioned, are invited to enroll. Consultants will register as users. The system is client driven, so the clients assess their business and they will assign representative agents and consultants to act on their behalf, and they are in control of as Judith was just showing. That's a great piece of work that she's done there to show that. And so this is client driven, and we're looking for an orderly transition. Thanks.
Okay, in terms of the area applied for, is it possible to upload a polygon with coordinates instead of using the grid cells? Also, which coordinate system or systems will be used?
Jim, I would hand that one over to you as well. With
Thanks,
the scope of what I just showed, there's no coordinate upload, but I'll let you speak to that.
What we find in every jurisdiction is that this question does come up, yet it's not something that the industry eventually uses. What industry does is they go in and they identify the cells that they want, and if they don't want to use the map to select, and they would just simply input the cells. That's what we have found. So in terms of, again, in our experience bringing those practices into South Africa, that's what we're going with. You can select from the map or you could upload the cells.
Okay. I think you have answered the next question by Karina, but let me see if you can. So it's about managing consultants. Is it per client or per application or right? As a company may have different consultants acting on their behalf for different applications or right?
Right.
And I think that's exactly, sorry, Judith, that's exactly what you were showing, right?
Exactly. So the company can have as many consultants as they want, and they would grant permissions on that consultant based on, so you can have 3 consultants and maybe 2 is lodging an application, 1 is doing renewal of your rights, et cetera, et cetera. So it would handle 1 or multiple.
Okay. Which document upload file types and sizes will be allowed? Currently, only PDF is allowed.
Yep, you have Word documents, you have Excel, the standard, but I think specifically when we build this requirement, the subject matter experts will specify the document types. And I think from what is coming in from the clients, majority of them, they flag that they want to see a PDF. So again, as we navigate our moving into the testing phases, are moving into the future, if there are other document type, but the standard document types would include your Word doc, your Excel, PDF, and if you have any unique document type, file type, we can also look into those extensions.
Right. Annual SLP reports, future mining notices, financial statements, closure cost, annual assessment, will these all be able to be uploaded on the new system?
Yeah, so from what I read here, I think this would refer to some of those things that I mentioned as obligations. So I know something like your annual SLP report, they have to submit it once every year. So we do have that in an upcoming another future cycle. For sure, I'm very sure that SLP is part of that. Closure costs, future mining notices, I'm not sure exactly where they fit in, but if they're within the obligation scope, they will be part of the system. But I know for sure an annual SLP report is there. So that's what I've shown. That's something, to get to this point, we have to establish lodgement and issuance of rights first, and then progressively we're going to now get into the obligations that those rights will have to adhere to.
Then the last one, will the client be able to see where the application is on the back end?
So there are two ways that these are handled. So again, if you look at it from the perspective of we do want to save time and not have this client calling us and showing up here and emailing us asking us about their status of their application. How that's handled is for every application that you state, you would put a status on it so that when the applicant logs in, and it will be similar again, going back to visa application, it would say in review. So the client knows a decision hasn't been made. I'm not going to be calling these people. But again, how detailed you want to go. We do have the statusing in place that kind of tells the client. So from when an application is fully submitted, they can see when it's accepted. If it's accepted, we change the status to accepted. When you make a final decision, we'll move the status to granted and then go to issuance. So the level of what you want them to see is up to you, but the statusing of an application is a norm. That one is a generic to give them an insight. But if you don't want them, like I showed earlier, there was a tab I showed which highlights all the tasks that has been completed. That's a second layer. If you don't want that to be exposed to the client, you just want to have it internally, we can turn that off and then make it only available back end. But at a minimum, your client should be able to see the status of their application.
Lastly, from the guests, there is an appreciation to you for having made this presentation and a demonstration. Thank you very much, our guests. We now move on to honorable members. Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Chair. I am going to keep my video off because I've got connectivity issues. Greeting to yourself, the colleagues, and everyone on the platform. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, how will the system ensure data integrity and the application process will be transparent and the applicants won't be subjected to an inefficient process? That's the first. The second question is, who is handling the data quality assurance and what kind of oversight is taking place to assure that the data quality assurance, And then the last one is that, is there any estimate of further delays or delays in terms of the system going live in all of the provinces? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zungula. The team, can you respond?
So Jim, I think that question has lots of layers to it, but maybe I'll hand over to you to let's speak into the data quality, because at least we know the issues that we're encountering and facing with data migration. So I would hand over to you to provide a bit of an insight, and maybe DGG can also contribute to it.
Yeah, I'll take a first look at this. Data is a concern, of course, data security, data integrity, data quality. And it comes down to confidence in the data. When the business area, the subject matter experts, the regional offices have confidence in the data, that's when we want to be going live. When they have confidence in the data and it's looked at by the industry, and they'll look at their own rights and acquisitions, and when they're confident in the data, then that's the indication that we're in a good place, and that people will start to use the system. Managing data, or the confidence in data integrity, minimizing concerns, data change without authorization. I think that Judith went through a lot of that. You see that there's traceability to it, there's reporting, there's alerts, there's notifications. We do use data encryption during the data migration, access control and authentication processes. Things are role-based access, that ensuring only authorized users have access. We use a multi-factor authentication, enter ID. We do support conducting regular security audits. We're working on monitoring components right now. So vulnerability assessments, penetration testing to identify weaknesses. And one thing that the system does is it generates log files. So if there is something that happens, an error message or something happens, we can look at the log files and we can generally determine the cause of it. The work that we're working right now with is SAMRAD and some of the other existing platforms that information is stored on, and bringing those together and migrating them into this new system. Pause there. Peter, did you want to comment on that?
No, Jim, you have covered everything. Thank you.
No, Chair, through you, I think I need to just respond to the issue of estimate on delays. I think we've put ourselves under a lot of pressure, Chair, and as we indicated, we have an indicative date for completion for each of the regions. But I must hasten to say, Chair, that all of this is dependent on the quality of data. And the second question was about quality assurance. And that is being done jointly between, the region, but also the PMG team. And that is taking quite a lot of time. So we've challenged ourselves for the dates that we presented last week. But Chair, I think we are still committed to those dates, because once we have learned the lessons in the Western Cape, we think it will be easier then to roll out to the rest with that proviso of the data quality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DDG. Honorable Zungula, let me go to Honorable Slepe, who's about to board a flight, before I come back to you for a follow-up. Honorable Slepe?
Chairperson, thank you very much. Let me observe the protocol. I'm maintaining the protocol observed by my colleague, Honorable Zungula. Chairperson, fifth one. I just want to get the clarity. It's also based on the data migration. On the data migration, the current and the existing rights are having the unique number from SAMRAD. I'm checking, will cadastral migrating with the unique number from SAMRAD, or they're going to get the one? If we are moving the data with the current, I mean the current one for SAMRAD, how will the system pick up the status of an existing money or a permit? Or is it going to be, the system is not going to show that they need to restart? I just want to understand in terms of the unique number, because the unique number, you only get it after the completion of the application. And then in case of migration, the system, I didn't notice in the presentation where they are giving it that in case of migration, it's generation a new code based on the system fed by SAMRAD. That's number one. Number two, in case of minerals in the same portion, if, for instance, it's 3 minerals in the same portion, will all have unique number, or is it going to be one unique number? And the BAR, the base assessment report, is going to be one, or it's also going to need each and every mineral that is in that particular area to have its own basic assessment report? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Slepe. Did we manage to get both questions? There was a background issue there.
No,
If you have...
yeah, I'm not sure I got it, but if someone can help rephrase his question, that would be helpful, please.
Is there anyone who understood or heard what was said?
First question was
So-
about, oh, go ahead, sorry.
So perhaps I can answer this question. So with respect to the file reference numbers in for legacy applications or legacy rights, we will be using file reference numbers that are associated with the rights and with the applications that are currently in SAMRAD. But you also have to understand that a given right may have several different file reference numbers, because when they do a renewal, it's a separate application, has a separate file reference number. So this is what makes the migration of existing rights challenging. And there are many other challenges associated with SAMRAD in the migration. So that's the first point. I'm sorry, there was a second dimension to that question that I've just escaped me.
From 1,164 to 1,153. I've also said.
Yeah, so Barry, the question was if there will be a unique file reference number for every part of the process. Or yeah, so
what? So the for the process when we migrate the applications, we will be associating. So, for example, if you have if you have a right and then that right was renewed, it will have a separate file reference number. We will be bringing both file reference numbers over, but we will be showing them. So in this case, a renewal, we'll be showing it as an event in the an event in the life cycle of the right in the new system. So, but we will be we will be migrating all of the active applications. Well, we will be migrating all of the applications, but we will be providing most of the detail will be with respect to current pending applications or active rights.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to ask Honorable Slepe whether he has a follow-up question, because his background is a bit bad. I'll move to Honorable Zondi. Honorable Zondi, do we have Honorable Zondi on the platform?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, can I go last because I'm trying to find better signal?
Okay. Honorable Slepe, your hand is up again. Do you want to try with that background?
No, Chairperson, I'll write on the chat.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Hassan. Honorable Hassan, are you on the platform? Okay. Honorable Nchabeleng.
Chair, thank you so much for the opportunity to engage and actually raise the questions here. One, I think maybe one must appreciate the lengthy and very detailed presentation that was offered, and the step-by-step process on how to do the application. And indeed, it's quite a very robust process, and must be really appreciated to see that a major step has been taken to finalize these things. More than anything, one, I would like to get the clarity on the issues with regards to the system itself. One, who's the owner of the system, and where is the data kept? Is it something that is South African now based in terms of information integrity and sovereignty. The other thing is looking at the element of how the system will be utilized. You know, I've seen it, it's quite comprehensive. My worry is it's too comprehensive to the point where I think it's removed over 90% of our poor communities. I mean, really, to the extent where it looks like paperwork was much easier because you would just fill out paperwork and then bring in the studies and then do the accession of the maps and stuff. But after seeing this process, I was quite comforted on the next presentation when I think it was Mr. Boss or somebody who then said that they are willing to help people who are junior miners or artisanal miners or even communities in respect to doing the application. That is one of the most well-encouraged process where we can get a lot of support because, you know, the reason why we have a big problem in South Africa on mineral rights and mineral rights application is there a background somewhere? Because I'm picking up a feedback of some sort.
It shouldn't come from me. I'm not sure. Are you
Okay, it's
picking
fine.
up?
That's
Okay.
yeah, there was a background coming out.
Okay.
But I think
Can you
it's gone
proceed?
off now. Yeah. So on those bases is how do we then encourage the use of this system to communities? And what will be the support system in a package format where if, for instance, take a community based in KwaZulu-Natal, they have an interest in a quarry project, which is a mining project, and they want to do an application for this thing, and they don't have money for all the consultants, the intensive studies and everything. It's just a quarry application. How will the system be able to accommodate them without having to create this problem where we end up leaving economic opportunities being attended to and rather just say, you know what, the system is too complicated for us to operate with? Because I know the problem of mining rights application is it's always been a barrier to access where people having had the barrier to having consultants pay hundreds of thousands of money to get these licenses. And not only that, they are not even guaranteed that after paying that money, they will get the licenses. So how do we answer that question with regards to the frustrations that communities have expressed in relation to going through these processes, given the fact that the most successful people have always been major companies, as well as people that specialize or have special relationships in departments? They get assistance, they get support, but ordinary people who have an interest in creating enterprise and business opportunity in the mining sector haven't been very successful in the space of application for mineral rights.
Mr. Makubela?
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for the question. So the system belongs to us. Let me just indicate that. And the data also, of course, is going to be on the cloud. But as indicated, I mean, this is sovereign data belonging to the people of South Africa through the department. I think the issue on the small, access to people who don't have, IT as well as funding. So as indicated by Mr. Swart, we are going to be able to assist them in the regional offices. So at best, they are going to have to, travel to each of the regional offices, and we will be able to assist them. We also, like we do currently with SAMRAD, we expect that we will have a help desk, but unfortunately that one will be online. So we intend creating kiosks in each of the regions where basically we are able to take people through the applications process. We believe this system will free up some time, which time then we can use to be able to assist those who need assistance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Nchabeling, because these were political questions, I'm not sure
sir.
where, I don't want to trap the Canadian delegation into our South African politics.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up question. Is there any process by which this system can be, where, when you do banking apps, they have the most simple, straightforward to go through process where you can be shown pictures of what you expected to do. XYZ document, stage process, secondary to it, stage process. And then it gives you examples of what you're supposed to be giving as a package presentation. Why I'm saying this is because we know the challenges, as I stated earlier, that not everybody is a big mining company. A lot of people who want those mining rights are actually community people, but they don't have this sophisticated systems, consultants, etc. So do you have anything that a layman who has a business interest can take this thing up and saying, okay, according to DMRE, they want form XYZ. Here's the form example. Boom, you put it in. Here's the next step of it. Boom, you put it in. The other challenge I saw is the system holds you up if you don't have all the completed documents. It doesn't break the process up into stages to say, okay, fine, from stage 1 to 3, you have completed the process. We've got the documentation, but going forward, we would need XYZ for the next stage to be finalized, and then the next stage. And then where there is requirements like it used to be in the past, the department will write you a letter to say, we need you to fulfill
Honorable
1 to
Nchabeling,
3.
can you hold on? Honorable
apologies,
Hassan,
sir.
your hand is up. What is it for?
Chair, apologies. It was because I had gotten kicked out of the meeting. I was actually just raising my hand to be noted in the round. Yeah,
Okay, you're noted. Put it down, please.
thank you.
Honorable Nchabeling, were you done with your question?
Yeah, I think they can answer the question. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Okay, who's taking the question? Can you go ahead?
So I could take a jab at it. We can go from there. So for the process itself, when we talked about the step-by-step, the system provides that step-by-step process. So it's also important to note, as part of the exercise that we started with, to build the software, as much as we have a framework, we always lead with what are your critical problems you want us to solve. One of them that came up consistently across multiple regions is how much time it takes to go through the review process. Now you get that problem. The follow-up question is, let's now discuss what attributes to that lag, what is contributing to this big issue. A big one that showed up consistently, and this, we had some working sessions, even while Jim and I were in South Africa, we had some room working sessions. One of them that came up consistently throughout different sessions we had in different rooms was the issue of starting an application review and realizing the client does not have everything you need to make that decision. So you're calling, you're putting something on hold. And again, you're still guided with these NEMA timelines, that there's so many legislated timelines that you need to follow as a ministry. So some of this issue, and sometimes you start following up with them, you then lose touch of that client because maybe the consultant that put in the application is nowhere to be found. So all of these issues contributed. And what we led with is, how do we make life easier? How do we make life easier for your client who is applying? And how do we make life easier as well for the people who's going to be handling this application and making a decision, and they are held with legislated timelines to complete their work? So the first step is putting at the front of the client all of the things that they need to provide to then consider their application complete. In the stage of lodgement of a new application, we put that step-by-step into consideration. This is why we have 2 steps I showed for the application. The first step is pretty straightforward. They are defining their area, paying the required application fee, and locking in and putting in the application. The second step then provides...
Thank you, Judith. Thank you. The time allocated for that question is now up. Can we please move to Honorable Hassan?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm going to humbly request that I don't turn on my video because I've been having a bit of a network challenge, and that's how I ended up getting kicked out of the meeting and struggling to get back in. So I'm going to get straight into it with your indulgence, Chair, of not putting on the camera. And you'll appreciate also I might have missed some of the questions that might have been asked. So my first question is around artisanal and small scale miners. I appreciate that very big corporate companies, et cetera, will have teams of people or a dedicated person or, as we said, consultants, et cetera. But I am a little bit worried about small scale miners and what kind of support systems that we're putting in place for them. Now, I wonder if it would be the same as, in fact, I don't think it would be the same as individuals. I do think we need to find some sort of support mechanism there. That's the first point. The second point, Chair, sorry, I'm just putting up my notes. Right, there we go. I want to align myself also with other members who've spoken about the time it takes in which to lodge and complete the application. I think it was, I'm sorry, I'm getting everybody's names wrong, but I think there was some mention that it might take weeks, it might take days, and I know that that's also part of the challenge in the process. So I wanted to know if there's any way we could do also real-time support to speed up that process. I understand that we're still in a beta sort of testing phase in that we are only starting to outroll it now. But I do wonder if we can cut those turnaround times or the process in which it takes with some real-time support. And I also wonder what possibilities there are because it's a Canadian company that's actually providing the service or the support. And that is quite a big concern because, you know, you have a variety of people who are applying for these mining rights. Not everybody is as techno-savvy or as technically savvy as we want them to be, and they might need that kind of real-time support. So I also wanted to posit that. And then I also wanted to get to a final point and really appreciate, Chairperson, through you, the brave move that it has been to have this meeting, because even this recording can act as an educational toolkit. But I don't think it starts and ends there. And this is both to the DDG and to the team that's dealing with the technical stuff. I think that we need to almost put aside budget and time for explainer videos that are shorter in nature, that can take you through a step-by-step process. So as we go through it, and already listening to some of the questions that have been posed from constituents and people who are interested in the system, you're starting to see bugs in that process. And I think there's a necessity for a regular process in which we put out informative videos, informative information, and even if it's just like infographics, et cetera, And I do wonder what kind of work has been done into it. And I'm talking in a very professional manner. I mean, different studies have come out to show us that if we get the cadastral system right, we could increase GDP in this country by 1%. And that is incredibly significant. And part of getting the cadastral system right, apart from all the other technical stuff, is just getting accessibility on the line. And that's really important. And I don't know, Chair, if anyone else asked this, but I am still concerned about the fact that the system may run well. But again, if we don't have the accuracy of the data and the cleaning up of those data points and data sets from the different provinces, it's almost rendered redundant. And I think we really do need to zero in on that. So leave it at that for now, Chair. And if there's any follow-ups in my time, I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah, your last question was answered. It was asked by Honorable Zungula. Can we please get answers for the other questions?
I can probably step in and just, I really appreciate the Honorable Minister's question there. I think it is very important. Artisanal miners and small scale miners are incredibly important to the system. I believe they're at the core of success for a country. We are implementing monitoring of the system, performance of the system. We look at how users are using the system. And we want to, when we get questions come in, we want to be able to do outreach and provide tips and information. We have in-office support. You mentioned videos, and we're starting to work on those now, just very short videos to show how something happens. The dynamic online support should be able to assist people in that regard. And statistically, and I am going on statistics here, and I agree that the small scale user is critically important in every jurisdiction. In our experience, with good outreach from the ministry, we do see a substantial success rate with small scale miners.
Thank you. Are all questions answered?
Maybe, Chair, through you, I think the issue of the data, you did indicate that it's been, I think it's been asked earlier, but to indicate that we are spending quite a bit of time, even ahead of deployment in other regions. So we've sent colleagues to Eastern Cape as well as Free State ahead of deployment there, just to do high-level quality assurance. And then so that when Jim and the team move in, at least some of those obvious data inconsistencies have been dealt with. And that's what we're going to do. So we'll move ahead of the PMG team reaching the next region, send people to do some assurance there so that we can speed up the process. But we are focusing quite a lot on this in the interest of existing right holders and permit holders. Thanks.
The question about the real-time support for applicants during the process hasn't been answered, says Honorable Hassan.
So on this one, Chair, I can invite here Mr. Swart, because what we did for Western Cape, we established. We don't like using this. We called it a war room, and our principals that they felt we should use another name, where basically you have people who are there monitoring where there's clients are having difficulties, and then they're able to respond in real time. I don't know, Mr. Swart, if you can explain that process just briefly.
Yes, DDG. What we did is we made sure that we made contact with all our legacy clients, and where we have communicated to them and they have indicated certain challenges on the system itself, there's also a pop-up message that gives contact details for officials in Western Cape, and then they would send their queries or challenges to these officials, and we respond to them immediately.
Mr. Swart, thank you.
Okay.
The time for this question is up. Thank you very much, Honorable Zondi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me first start by expressing my appreciation for the presentation as well as the demonstration. I think DDG, this cadastral system has been a long time coming, and we are happy that at least, even though we are still in the initial phases, but at least we are trying to roll it out. I think it is quite crucial for our country to be able to have a functioning mining licensing system. My question, though, is you would appreciate that one of the most important aspects of a cadastral system is the transparency aspect that it gives to normal citizens. So I do see the clients or the people who are going through their applications. So my question is around, if I'm a normal citizen and I want to see who has what mining right granted in what area, if I'm able to do that. Now, I know that if you are trying to apply for a right, it will tell you that this area has already, is already taken. But if I was browsing as a normal citizen and I wanted to see who has what mining right and where, will I be able to see that. Obviously, keeping in mind the provisions of the POPI Act, will I be able to see who exactly owns that particular mining right? Or will I only just see that that area, there's already someone who's granted a mining right? So that is my first question. My second one is in terms of the historical data. I think Judith, during her presentation, did mention that you will be able to see if there have been applications there before or just historical entries within that particular block that maybe a person is applying for. But what I would like to know is how far back does it go? Does it include previous entries from the SAMRAD system? Or is it only just including the entries that would have been done in this new system only? So that is excluding the historical data of applications, whether failed or passed from the SAMRAD system. Then my other question is still on historical data. It has to do with previous right holders that would have been captured by the SAMRAD system. But let's say a right has expired, so that area is free. A person can go into that particular area. Will in the system, will it show that previously there was once, let's say, in 2012, there was once a Mr. Smith that used to own a right here. So how far back does the historical data go? The reason I ask this is one of the reasons this new cadastral system is required is for transparency. And as much as we have lost time in terms of transparency before, because the SAMRAD system didn't give us that, but will this system be able to maybe help us in terms of going back in time and maybe showing us those different entries? I do appreciate that it will need a lot of data migration and it might not be perfect, but how far back do you think that it can be able to go? Then the other one is with regards to how secure is the system in terms of hacking or the possibility of people being able to get into the system and alter the information that is there. So what are the safeguards that are there to ensure that doesn't happen? Then, Chairperson, my last question that I would like to ask is with regards to sorry, I'm just trying to think because I had made notes and I'm now forgetting this last question that I wanted to ask. Okay,
Can they respond?
Yes, yeah, I think I'll stop there. Then when I have a follow-up opportunity, maybe I'll remember. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, when you have a follow-up opportunity and time. Can we get the responses?
Yeah, I'll take the
I'll
first.
just briefly, sorry, can I just briefly respond to the historical question? We have, for Western Cape so far, we have all of the applications back to the beginning of the NMPS system, which I believe is roughly about 2005. So we will be migrating all of the identified applications back to that period. It's the question of the amount of detail related to each of those applications may not be as much as we would like.
Thanks,
Okay.
Barry. I'll take the other couple. So there was a transparency question and a security question in addition to the historical entries. Transparency is an objective of the project, and it's defined in many different ways. It starts with the map viewer and the spatial data that we bring that associates land values. And when industry make a selection on an area, it's an informed decision. And the question about the public being aware of these things, of an acquisition or an interest in the land, They are a stakeholder in some cases. They would be notified. In many jurisdictions, the map viewer and the search functionality are open to the public. You don't have to be a logged in user to access search. And here is an example. You can do a title search, or you can just look at the map. And when you're on the map, you can also do queries. And so this allows the public or non-mining user to determine what's going on in their area. And when we have the public who can inform themselves or make themselves aware, and when we have industry making informed decisions, the result is a reduced conflict, and we see a more secure right. So again, the regional office offers support. A person could go into the office, they could access someone in the office to provide them with information. They may, depending on the decisions by DMPR, use the map viewer, carry out queries, look at the map to see what's over their farmland, or they could do a search. So I think that's the transparency for citizens and non-industry. These are functions that are used repeatedly by industry and artisanal miners on a constant basis to keep themselves informed about opportunities that are coming. The other question around security, all of the data resides, as DDG said, in a cloud. It's a secure Microsoft cloud environment, and we're working with DMPR, ICT through all of that.
And
Thanks.
then just in one additions as well, someone asked the question about changes in the system. As I showed in the demonstration, from the back office, you have every function you have some permissions. So depending, every staff can just go in and change things related to updating information on a right and permit. That should be something that you're giving permission at a very high level, and it's not everybody that have access. So the system provides accommodation for the ministry itself to go into assign permissions on what our internal staff members can do and what they cannot do based on your your roles and maybe your level of expertise.
Thank you. Honorable Zondi, you have less than a minute. I'm not sure whether you will get a response if you make a follow-up question.
Chairperson, it's just with regards to timelines. When is the application considered an application? So what I mean is that with regards to time, if I apply and I still need to upload documents but I've paid, is that considered?
In less than 30 seconds, can we respond?
Or do I need to complete the entire process for it to be considered an application and me being first in line? That's the last one, Chair.
The first in line, just to answer quickly, with what the work that we've done, the second step is what triggers the ministry review. So you would have to, if you've paid, the second step is the uploading document. Up until those documents are uploaded, that's the only time the internal review process will then kick off. So again, there are two ways to do this. What we do is based on, there was a lengthy conversation around this, but what was established is up until they have fully, and we looked at this section in your legislation, what they mean by prescribed manner, that includes the documents coming in. And based on those rules, that's how we've configured the system to kick off the review process based on when you've completed.
Thank you. Thank you. And the last two questions come from Honorable Sene, who is unable to speak because of low bandwidth. They are on the chat. One says, does the proposed system integrate with South Africa's existing land information systems like deeds office and municipality system? Is there any steps needed to ensure interoperability across departments? That's the first one. The second one is that what are the minimum infrastructure requirements for rollout, especially in rural areas? You can just repeat some of the things that you had responded to, especially on the last question, Mr. Makwela, and the team.
Okay, Barry or Jim, I'll let you take the first one if you. I think the second one we already touched that multiple times.
Yeah, integration is always a work in progress, no doubt about it. And so we have the CIPC, Home Affairs, Adumo Online, and again, this is the initial rollout of a system, and it matures over time as we identify additional needs to share information or contain information within our system. We'll look at interoperability with across departments. Really, that's at the direction of DMPR and setting objectives to do that.
I would just say on the other aspect of integration is with the spatial data layers for which other departments are custodians of that data. So, for example, the Surveyor General, the Deeds Office, and there are multiple other agencies and departments within the government of South Africa whose spatial data sets we need, and we expect to integrate those.
Yeah. Chair, maybe if I can just respond to the issue on infrastructure. I think when the PMG team came and looked at specifically the IT infrastructure, there was a realization that would need to upgrade quite a bit, hence the decision to host the system in the cloud, because then you don't have to invest as much in servers and things like that. And I think it was the right decision to take, Chair, because it has moved us forward. Then I think the first question the colleagues have responded. We keep reaching out. I mean, just to give an example, that as recently as yesterday, we realized that we need to also reach out to the space agency about the square kilometer array. So as we discuss, we then discover that, okay, there's a special department or entity that we have to reach out to so that they can indicate to us which areas, for example, to exclude. And one of those is the square kilometer array. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makubela, from the department, and our appreciation from the team from Canada. And we also want to thank our guests for the questions they've posed. We also want to thank honorable members for the questions they have posed and the responses we have received. We have played our part, Mr. Makubela, in trying to have you educating the public. And that's why this was live stream, so that at any given time, anyone who wants information that was given today can simply go to YouTube or go to their DSTV channel 408 for the repeat of the process that was outlined here. But we want to propose to you that you play your part as well. These kind of things need or necessitate some form of a roadshow to educate minors and interested parties on how the system will work. It doesn't have to be in a hall. The same way we have done it today can be done in all 9 provinces. But the reality is that our people will need as much education as possible on this system. We don't want to speak bad about the system. It's a good system. but it's as good as nothing if people don't know how to use it. So what will be of importance moving on is the education of interested parties on this process. It's a suggestion that we're making as Parliament. I'm sure the Canadian team will always be available for this kind of appraisals to the public. We would really appreciate if they can really be flexible to be available when you decide to take our proposal. Any parting shots? I'll start with the Canadian team, and then I will take Mr. Makubela before we close the meeting.
No, I want to thank everyone. I think the questions that came up were great. I hope the demonstration had value. There is work to do around acquisition of spatial data from custodians. We do need to move forward with outreach and reach out to anyone who may be interested or have an interest, a vested interest in this system. We do expect to see an increase in use in South Africa, an increase in acquisition of rights and permits, and we expect improved confidence in the security of rights. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Makubela.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I want to really thank yourself, Chair, and honorable members for the opportunity, because I think as the presentation was ongoing, we really, as a department, realized that we, as you indicate, Chair, we have to have an outreach, a broader outreach. So, Chair, I can say this without hesitation, that we accept the guidance that you have given us as the committee, and we shall implement. It may be a variation, but I think there is a need, Chair, and we will definitely, reach out to all the key stakeholders and all the provinces as well. So, Chair, I think maybe lastly from my side to say that I also want to extend, a word of appreciation to the team. It was, I think, 7 or 8 a.m. where they are, but they were able to take us through. But Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. They must have a very good day ahead. We will have a very good evening ahead. Ms. Boss, is there any item on the agenda?
No, Chair, that was the only item.
Okay, thank you, honorable members. That brings us to the end of today's meeting, and the meeting stands adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.